Hello, welcome to Queuing It Up. I'm Johnny Taylor, City Manager in the City of Lexington, North Carolina. Today I have a special guest, and her name is Rebecca Hart. Rebecca Hart joined the City of Lexington in 2022 as a lead for the North Carolina Fellow from the UNC Chapel Hill School of Government before accepting her position in 2023 as a Community Development Planner. Rebecca has a bachelor's degree in communication and a bachelor's degree in political science from Western Carolina University, and is currently pursuing a master's in public administration from UNC Chapel Hill. Since joining the city, she has overseen the Lexington Academy. She's managed the rollout of the social district, coordinated community meetings and events, and helped secure and administer over $6 million in grants. It was one of those specific grant projects, the survey of the African American section of the city cemetery, that sparked her interest in historic preservation. Now she works with other business and community development staff to administer the city's historic preservation program. Welcome, Rebecca Hart, to Queuing It Up.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So we're going to get right into the questioning, and tell us, what is historic preservation?
Yeah, historic preservation is the identification, evaluation, and preservation of items, sites, and structures that are historically, culturally, or architecturally significant. It started as a kind of a big movement after World War II. America was having this large urban renewal, and there were interstates, highways, and high-rises that were being developed. Unfortunately, a lot of neighborhoods and business districts were destroyed while those were being developed. And so in 1966, they passed the National Historic Preservation Act, which incentivized property owners to preserve historic sites, as well as work to minimize the risk of federal projects impacting those sites.
Okay, so we hear where the origins are for historic preservation. Why is that important for our community?
Yeah, I would say it's very important for Lexington. There's many reasons why. There's over 9,000 listings in the National Registry of Historic Places, and 3,000 of those are in North Carolina. It helps us learn and explore our history and shows the different perspectives of demographics and their lived experience. Here in Lexington, I think it paints a very unique story here. While there might be other towns that had mills or similar industries, their story is still different from ours, and we have our own. And so you can see that in the Grimes Mill, the Dunbar High School, the Uptown Lexington. It allows us to own our history, celebrate it, and continue moving forward. So another advantage for participating in historic preservation is the economic advantage that it brings. And so since 1977, there has been $239 billion poured into economies through tax credit programs to rehabilitate these sites. And that also created 3.1 million jobs, as well as established $251 million in GDP. And that actually represents about 30% of the construction sector. So this is really important because when people choose to bring new life into these properties, they're boosting their own economy as well as the surrounding economy. They increase the value of their property and could potentially increase tourism for their local area.
Okay, so I know you said a few names there, but what are some of the historic properties within Lexington?
So within Lexington, we have numerous properties that are designated historic on the National Registry of Historic Places, and some of those would be Grimes Mill, hopefully Dunbar High School soon, as well as St. Stephen United Methodist Church and Grace Episcopal Church, and Holt House on South Main Street. We also have districts such as Uptown Lexington, the industrial district known as the Depot District, and then individually listed properties locally, which are called local landmarks, would be the Dunbar High School and the Parkview Apartments.
So you hear the terms local designation or, national designation. What is the difference between the two?
So, the key difference between the local and the national designation is that the national designation comes through the National Park Service through the National Registry of Historic Places. And the key difference is that property owners of those properties do not have to have any restrictions on what they do on that property unless they're using federal funds for a rehabilitation process. Whereas on the local level, those go through the Historic Commission, which is rolled into our planning board and then is voted on by city council before it becomes a local landmark or a local historic district. Those property owners do have to receive a certificate of appropriateness before they do work on their property to ensure that it meets the guidelines of our historic district guidelines.
So you keep saying certificate of appropriateness. What is that and what makes that so important?
Yes, that's very important. We try to educate property owners that it's not necessarily the government trying to tell them what they can do with their property, but instead we're trying to protect the historical significance of their parcel. And so what they would do is they would come to the Business and Community Development Office and share some information about the project they would like to do. We would give them an application to fill out, and depending on what they're wanting to do, it may be administered and approved by staff, or it may have to go to the planning board for approval. And this is everything from fences, sidings, additions, things of that. Mainly what we look for is to see if it complies with the historic district guidelines. It is up to the applicant to prove how they're going to meet those guidelines and maintain the historic significance of their property.
So you talked a little bit about what the city's role is in historic preservation, but what all does that encompass?
It's a variety of things. Certainly the Historic Preservation Commission that was rolled into the planning board plays a key role into that with the certificate of appropriateness and the historic district guidelines. At the same time, the city is eligible to apply for grants because we maintain our certified local government status. And to maintain that, we have to attend so many hours of training a year as well as planning board members. With that status, we've been able to apply for grants that helped us secure funding to do the survey of the African American section of the city cemetery, as well as the funding for the Lincoln Park Neighborhood Project to survey and inventory them, capture their history, and nominate them to the National Registry of Historic Places.
So let's talk a little bit about historic tax credits, how that's all connected.
Most of those come through the State Historic Preservation Office and the National Park Service. Most individuals who are wishing to seek that would hire a consultant to help them because most people are not familiar with the paperwork to fill that out. You can go after tax credit for income producing properties, which would be like your commercial or your multifamily apartments. And then you can also go after tax credits for a home that you reside in yourself.
Okay, so if I were to ask you, where would you think we could possibly be 10 years from now as far as our historic preservation emphasis and the types of things that we could accomplish?
I would hope that we could do some more education with folks about the importance of caring about historic preservation. It can be a lot more cumbersome on the property owner for a local designation than necessarily someone with a national designation, but it is worth it. When you think about how old some of these structures are and the fact that they're still standing after 100 years, there's a reason why. The materials are well, made, and there's certainly room to continue expanding the life of that building or that structure. Some other things that would be phenomenal is to see the community really own historic preservation, and we've seen that a bit like with the Lincoln Park neighborhood and how passionate they are about capturing their history. And it's really great that as staff, instead of us, championing historic preservation, we instead get behind the community and just help them accomplish what they would like to do.
That sounds good. Is there anything else that you think the public may need to know about historic preservation?
No.
Okay, we've covered it all.
Yep.
Okay. Well, Ms. Hart, thank you so much for taking your precious time to be here today. We thank you for all of your efforts and all the great things that you're doing here to help our community improve and be better. And we also ask that you continue to come up with good ideas and push the limits so that we may continue to be a community that is the best place in the universe to live, work, and play. Thank you so much for being here with us on Queuing It Up, and I'm sure we will have you back again in the future.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Queuing It Up. If you got some value by listening to this episode, please subscribe and leave a review on the platform you're listening to this episode on. You can also follow us on social media at City of Lexington for updates on future episodes. For more information on the City of Lexington, please visit www